right, see what happens, Mike Gill, when you're not ready to go, when you're in taking
Now
a
you
pee
gotta
or
listen to
whatever
our
you were
Steven
doing at the
Jackson
time.
talk.
I get off on a tangent and we make you sit there and listen to us for 8 minutes. My apologies.
Sorry, I tried to time it out perfectly. I must have missed.
We appreciate you hopping on board. Thank you much. 11-1 Philadelphia Eagles. ESPN's metrics say somehow they are the fourth choice to win the Super Bowl this year. Crunching numbers, 10,000 simulations played. How the hell does that work? You got any idea? I know that your tie to ESPN is tangential. You're 97.3 ESPN radio, but you're not exactly an ESPN employee, but you got your name attached to it, Gill, so I'm asking you, how the hell did ESPN come up with the Eagles as the
I don't know how they
Super Bowl
how they come up with any of these FPIs and this and that, and this team's got this percentage chance to win this game, and I don't know who they decided to put on the payroll to say, hey, come up with some formulated number that says what's going to happen in these games. I mean, it's like if I listen to CBS Sports fantasy percentages every week, I'd be 0-11 in my fantasy football. Who comes up with how many points my guys are going to score? Like, I just don't understand who came up with it? The TV producer that said this will be a good conversation. Put Dallas at the top of this list and let everybody just kind of have at it.
Well, lose their mind. You know, Jody, you can't fall into that. You know, Dallas and the Cowboys, the Yankees, the Lakers, you know, there's certain teams.
Here's the thing. And again, I apologize if I'm being repetitive. This was supposedly computer generated. This isn't Skip Bayless sitting up on the stage going, and the Dallas Cowboys, the greatest thing to ever come, manna from heaven with number 11. And that I get. That's drama. That's pre-produced. That's opinion-generated television. No, this is a computer printout. 10,000 simulations supposedly played between these two teams based on their numbers and their stats and what they've accomplished this year. And somehow the Cowboys come out. You're telling me the computer's a personality too.
Hey, listen, I'll say this. I don't really care what the simulation says. They could be accurate. I'm not knocking Dallas. I have no reason to say that they don't deserve. They don't deserve to be there. Are they my best team right now? Not necessarily. But if you ask me who the best team is, this would be one of those situations where there is no number one. There isn't a best team right now. The league is filled with teams with a ton of flaws. I'm trying to find my 5 best teams in the league. I had last week, Kansas City was my 1. They lost. I had Miami in there. They lost. San Francisco lost their quarterback. So now it's a jumbled mess up there. Every team at the top has a reason to say we belong at the top, and all of those teams have a flaw. So San Francisco, Dallas has just as much of debate to be in that spot. I don't think it's obvious. I don't think it's clear cut, but I'm not appalled by it.
You're not appalled that the Dallas Cowboys are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl right now, and the Eagles are no better than the fourth choice?
No, I can't get appalled by it.
No,
I'm absolutely appalled by it.
We had this discussion, on my show yesterday. We were debating about Minnesota, and everybody just seems to be putting Minnesota to the side, myself included. And the situation was, well, they're 10-2. And I said, and I hate this argument because you hear it all the time. I said, they don't have a win on that schedule where you're like, all right, now they beat Buffalo at Buffalo.
Yeah.
But that game was a
crazy game.
That game was as fluky gets. Okay, so I give them some credit for that. They lost 40-7 or 40-3 to Dallas, and they got their butts kicked by Philadelphia. So I have a hard time saying they're one of the 5 best teams. Well, the argument was, well, they're 10-2. I said, I don't care what your record is. Your record doesn't necessarily mean that you're an 8-4 team can be. Cincinnati at 8-4 is better than Minnesota at 10-2. I'm sorry.
See, but Mike Gill, you are guilty of what John accused Eagle fans overall being about the defense. They want to compare this year's team to previous regimes' defenses and how they did it. Buddy Ryan, Bud Carson, got a blitz, the only way to get home, blah, blah, blah. No. 2022, stay in the moment, stay in your lane, stay focused. There has to be a best team in football. Whether it's the number one team after 13 weeks in 2022 as compared to the number one team in 2020 or 2017 or 2014. All of that goes out the window. It's only 2022. Every year at this time, there's a number one team with 4 weeks to go. Who's that number one team?
I mean, if you're asking me to pick my number one team right now,
Correct.
I think
in the NFL in 2022, heading into week 14, who's the number one team?
I think the most complete team with the least amount of flaws is Philadelphia.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, does that necessarily mean they're going to be the best team with the least amount of flaws 4 or 5 weeks from now? Not necessarily. But I said on this show last week, and I've said it all along, Kansas City, highly flawed team. They just have Patrick Mahomes. They can't run the ball. Their receivers are limited, and their defense is limited. They're at the top of people's list for one reason. They have Patrick Mahomes. Without him, they are an average football team. They just got beat again by Cincinnati. To me, Cincinnati is better than Kansas City is. If Kansas City doesn't have Mahomes, and they do, they're not even close to the discussion as one of the best teams in football. Now, Buffalo, they had a little bit of a roller coaster, and they seem to be kind of dipping a little bit. Well, is Buffalo back in the discussion? Likely, yes. I think Buffalo has a discussion to be a part of it, but they have major flaws as well. Dallas, to me, has less flaws than those teams do. Their problem is their quarterback is not as good as those two guys. I'll take Mahomes and Allen over Dak Prescott. That doesn't mean Prescott stinks. So I think Philadelphia and Dallas have the two teams with the least amount of questions and flaws.
Yeah, I think you can make a strong argument now that the 49ers have to go to Brock Purdy. That the two best teams in the NFL might be the Eagles and the Cowboys.
And I had San Francisco ahead of Dallas until that happened.
Yes,
I like San Francisco the next, and I like San Francisco probably more than I liked Philadelphia until last week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I picked San Francisco at the start. I think they have the best team, but they don't have the quarterback. I thought Trey Lance way back would be a slight upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's all they would need. But he got injured, then Jimmy gets injured. Now it's tough to go to Brock Purdy and say they're going to be a significant Super Bowl contender. But here's one thing you and I talked about, Mike. What we all thought, I think Jody's in this category. I'm certainly in this category. I think you're in this category. We all thought the AFC was going to be much better than the NFC. It's not the case. It's not the case. I will disagree. I don't think Minnesota is as good as the Eagles or the Cowboys. They got waxed by both. But guess what? They went undefeated against the AFC East. They're better than those AFC teams. Yeah, those AFC teams are flawed.
They beat Minnesota. They beat Miami when Tua was out. So you get knocked, I guess, for that.
But then we're doing the Eagles thing.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. But this is what ends up happening. I like the Miami team. Their problem is that, their defense isn't great. And then you take Tua off that offense. I don't know. I mean, it's not the same, but they beat Miami. That's a good win. They beat the Jets this week. I think the Vikings were a lot like the Eagles. Many people thought that the Jets were going to go beat Minnesota and Tennessee was going to beat Philly, and they both took care of business. Minnesota has a lot of questions that need to be answered, I guess, because of the quarterback. Other than that, I mean,
I don't think it's the quarterback. I think it's the defense.
I was going to say, the defense for me, the quarterback isn't the issue for me. It's their defense. The defense for me is their problem. I don't know that they have that. They do create a lot of turnovers on that side of the ball.
They make
but when push comes to shove, for whatever reason, people aren't buying into them. Maybe we're all wrong. But I will say this. I was on this show way back in the beginning of the season, and I said the AFC is overrated. Not as good, and it's turning out to be true.
Okay, and I can give you credit for it because John just got to it, and I will most definitely say it out loud. Oh, I said the AFC was going to be much better. That was in part the reason I picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl was because I didn't think the NFC was that hard. I thought getting to the Super Bowl in the AFC was going to be a hell of a lot harder. And the NFC has been just as good as the AFC this year. John's point is accurate, and I readily admit that I was wrong. I want to get your take on this. Watching Monday Night Football before I had to go on see WIP last night. The GOAT does it again. Brady does nothing for 3 stinking quarters.
Mickey Loomis, baby. New
down
Orleans
the field
Saints.
against the stinking Saints defense in the fourth quarter. Yeah, now that Eagle pick at number 1 in the first round is sitting at number 5. It's fluctuating. It'll go back and forth over the last 3 weeks of the season. But Brady's going to make it again. The Bucs are a 500 team, and we saw them kind of stink it up for 3 quarters, but then pull victory from the jaws of defeat. Last year, more so here on WIP than here on our stream, but we had a bunch of them here on the stream too. Give me Tom Brady. We want Tom Brady. We stuck it to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady. And I kept going, what are you people doing? What are you asking for? You want no part of Tom. He's the GOAT. Come on, don't be stupid. Don't root for the Eagles to get Brady. Well, they got Brady, and they got their ass kicked. What's the fear level of Tom Brady for Mike Gill this year if the Eagles and the Bucs have to play in the playoffs? Knowing that the percentages are, it's very likely going to be here in Philadelphia rather than down in Tampa where it was last year. Assuming a game at the link, what's your fear of Tom Brady and the Bucs in the playoffs, Mike?
They'd have to beat Dallas currently. That would be their first round game. And if Philly, if that happens, Dallas and Philly would play in the second round. If the Tampa Bay won that game and everything else worked out, Tampa would come to Philly. Oh, man, I am not one to wants to poke the bear, but they have shown nothing. They have had many games this year where they have come back.
I'm poking the bear. Bring them. I'd love to have Tampa Bay come here.
I feel like
they're an awful football team.
I feel like that style of quarterback, as good as he is, standing there would have a rough day at the office against this defense.
Yeah,
they are limited on the offensive line. Has been a disaster. For whatever reasons, Mike Evans seems like he got old overnight. They just have nothing. They can't run the ball a lick. That seems to be a perfect matchup for what John Gannon likes to do defensively. Now, it is the playoffs, and I would certainly not have 100% positive feeling. I asked on my show, would Dallas be, last year when Dallas got stuck playing San Francisco, I said, that's awful. That's the worst matchup for them. Does Dallas want to go play at Tampa Bay? I feel like the same situation. They played earlier this year, and Tampa won that game 19-3. So I don't know what has happened to Tampa since that game where they played really well defensively, but they cannot get anything going offensively. So to answer your question, Jody, no, I don't think I'd be all that worried about a Tampa Bay team coming here.
Yeah, I think it's uniquely Philadelphian to worry about, things, the ghost of Christmas past, whatever you want to call it. The Eagles aren't the same team. Tampa Bay most certainly isn't the same team from back in January. I mean, the Eagles are just significantly better. And we all know how difficult it is to play at Lincoln Financial Field. That's the whole thing with the Eagles.
Well, would we say, you remember, what was it? There was the Seattle team, I guess it was 7-9 that got in and ended up winning the playoff game. I think they beat the Saints. Were they significant? Were the Saints that season significantly better than Seattle all year long? I mean, again, that's why these.
Well, it's one game. You never say 100% because it is football. It's not best of 7, where the better team's going to win over that large period. You just got to play one bad game. The Eagles lost one bad game to Washington. I mean, typically they're going to wax Washington. So there's always that little chance in the NFL. That's what makes it so compelling. But boy, if this team lost to Tampa Bay, I would be stunned. So many things would have to go wrong. And it would have to be like that Washington game. Not only do you do a bad job on defense, you do a bad job on offense, special team. Everything would have to be. It'd have to be a perfect storm to lose that kind of football.
And Brady did that last night. It was a perfect storm, and he pulled the game out of it.
Well, to be fair, that Saints
team
stinks. That Saints team stinks.
Yeah.
So
the defense is not bad. Their
not
offense
to mention
stinks.
Mark Ingram and Taysom Hill basically said, "Take this game from us. We are not interested in winning it tonight." Although Todd Bowles tried to do it earlier in the game. I mean, come on, man. Todd Bowles, you're wondering. Well, he's got Tom Brady. It's 4th down and 6. He ends up punting the ball. You're thinking, hey, come on, man. You're down 2 scores at that time, but they end up coming back and getting it done. But both of those
he was getting killed by the analytics community, and then he wins the game. So it's another example of there's many different ways to win a football game. So I want to run this. So here's what we're talking about. So I always say Pro Football Focus grades 13 categories for teams. Eagles are number 1 overall. They're number 2 offensively. They have the number 4 passing offense. Pass blocking, they're number 1. Receiving, they're number 7. Running, they're number 10. So they stink at running. Run blocking, they're number 3.
10 doesn't stink. It's just not as good as the other aspects of them.
I'm joking. Defense is 3rd. Run defense, I got to look, 13th. So they're terrible at run defense. Tackling, they actually are terrible. That's tackling and special teams. They're 23rd in tackling, but that's a big improvement. Number 2 in the pass rush behind Dallas. Number 4 in coverage. And even special teams, they went from 32 to 29 this week because of the great Christian Ellis. This team is so well-rounded. They are so good at everything. That was joking. That was I was rolling my eyes that 10 or 13 is terrible. Why is it just Philadelphia that everybody waits for the other shoe to drop? Oh, this can't continue. No, they're the best team. Embrace it. Enjoy the run.
Well, I think, there's a lot that is tied to how we view at the beginning of a year. We believe in Patrick Mahomes at the start of the season, and we don't want to change our opinion and say, man, I was wrong about that guy. So we believe they're the best team. Same with Josh Allen. At the beginning of the year, many of the people in this comment section and watching this show, I'm assuming, did not believe that Jalen Hurts was this player. Now that he's doing this, it's hard for people to believe in the moment what they are seeing is really going to happen in the game that matters the most. Sure, he could do it on Sunday at 1 o'clock against the Indianapolis Colts or the Tennessee Titans, but at 1 o'clock or 4:25 on Saturday and night when they play in that NFC Championship game, will he be able to get it done? And people, much like last year with the Bengals, we didn't want to believe the Bengals were any good. They just kept winning. I don't trust them. They're the Bengals. It's the Bengals. Because the Bengals have never given us any reason to believe. So far, Jalen Hurts hasn't given us a reason to believe in a game that matters. So until that happens, people's opinions is going to be, I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, so here's the big question. Christmas Eve, Philadelphia, Dallas. Does that reach the magnitude of a Mike Gill game that matters?
Probably not. I don't think that game is going to have a lot of meaning. I think Philadelphia will win the next 2, and Dallas will still be within an arm's length behind, not been able to. If Dallas wins that, whoever wins that game is going to have a lot of gloating for the week, but realistically, they probably will meet again, and then whoever wins that game will be the one that will get the ultimate gloat. Going back to that regular season first time will be insignificant. The second one will be deemed insignificant. It will be that third meeting that will be the one that he will have to perform in to win universally everyone. You beat the Cowboys in the playoffs, you will universally win everybody over. Until that point, you're going to have people questioning. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of those people that are questioning him. I had no problem with Jalen Hurts being the quarterback at the beginning. There were people all season long. You got to trade for Russell Wilson. You got to get Watson.
The Eagles were one of them, Mike.
Right. Howie Roseman was on that list.
Well, I said, listen, I saw enough from him last year. They won 9 games last year with that team. When they made the moves that they made this offseason, I said they won 9 games last year with that team. This roster is significantly better. I don't know why the expectations weren't higher, but I said, my God, this team is significantly better than a team that won 9 games last year. And then, of course, it was, well, they won a lot of games against teams that weren't very good. So the hamster wheel constantly spins in this league. Well, you're not playing anybody. You can only play who's on your schedule. You beat teams that aren't any good. Nobody's any good. Nobody's any good. I said at the beginning, I can't even come up with a number 1 team. If you force me to, I will. But I don't think there is. I'm 45 years old, Jody. I'm not that old, but I remember saying the Dallas Cowboys in 1993, they were number 1. The San Francisco Giants, 49ers, they were number 1. The New York Giants in 86, the Bears, those teams are number 1 teams. There are no teams like that in this current league.
And that's why I asked the question the way I asked it. But forget about everything that's happened before. Don't compare this year's group to previous year's group, because someone's got to be number 1.
Well,
they might not compare to other years previous, but it doesn't matter. They're going to get the same trophy at the end of the year. Somebody's going to get that Lombardi. It's not going to be made to a smaller size because, the league wasn't as good this year. It's going to be the same fucking trophy as every other year.
Well, the difference is, right, those teams were so far and away definitively the number 1 teams. There wasn't even a challenger to those level of teams. Now, there are so many challengers that it's hard to surmise who's the best.
Boy, I don't know. I'm trying to think about this because it's a different era. So when you talk about, the first name I always default to is the 85 Bears. That's probably the best team I think I've ever seen as far as dominance goes. And then I start thinking about some of those Giants teams, the 49ers, the Cowboys. They're all great, great, great teams. And they were obviously great. The Cowboys run with Jimmy Johnson moving to Barry Switzer. If you can win a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, you got some talent. So I'm not trying to say the Eagles are with that kind of team. But I offensively at least, because the defense has changed so much. I get frustrated with the Eagles defense. I say it all the time. That's the way you have to play in the modern NFL. It's different. And they do it better than anybody else. So even I have to swim upstream against my own thoughts about the way defense used to be played. Offensively, I haven't seen a team in 20 years this versatile on offense. I mean, to me, this team is dominant. There's sometimes I can't believe what I'm seeing. They go 363 one week running, 380 the next week passing. When do you see that? Well, I can tell you, 1987. You got to go back 35 years. Historic's historic. The game has changed. I think the Eagles are every bit as dominant as those teams you mentioned. And by the way, I saw the Super Bowl team. They're much better than the Super Bowl team. Much, much, much better. Doesn't guarantee anything, but I do question why people don't recognize what they're watching.
Well, I think you know the answer and you don't like it. They didn't believe in the quarterback at the start of the season.
Yeah, that's it.
If this team was 11-1 and had the same exact stats rankings across the board, and Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback, this team would be the clear number 1 team in everybody's eyes, not even close. Heck, if this team traded for Russell Wilson, as bad as he's been, but he was here and they had the same stats and everything, there would be no question in anybody's mind that this team is the best team in the league. It comes down to coach and quarterback, and Sirianni's a part of it. He's an unknown too, right? He's a guy that's in his second year, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't know what this guy is. Is he good? Is he bad? What does he do? What is he good at? What is his specialty? Because most of these great coaches are tied to something. Andy Reid's a great play caller, great play designer. Shanahan's a really good play caller. McDermott in Buffalo was a great defensive mind. These guys have something that is tied to.
He's a great florist. He's 18-3 since he planted.
There you go. Sirianni doesn't call the plays. He doesn't call the plays. He's not a defensive guy. So he's just kind of perceived as a rah-rah guy that the guys just like playing for. And I think that is another reason why this team, it's coach and quarterback, and they are both probably the two biggest question marks for the detractors.
The CEO coach delegates, and Sirianni's doing a heck of a job with that. All right, Mike, last thing. You're in a unique position down the shore. Last night I took a call on WIP, a New Yorker who guaranteed a giant victory this week against Eagles. Good luck with that.
Guaranteed.
But down the shore, you get a little bit more of a New York feel because people come down from up north, like New York is north. It is as compared to Philadelphia. But you probably get a little New York flavor on your phones. Giant fans really believe they're going to win the game this week, or was this just an obnoxious New Yorker who hates Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, we really hadn't even turned about to mention Trey Turner signed yesterday in the middle of the show, which kind of hijacked us for a little bit. But
understood.
Haven't got the sense from the Giant fans at all. We do have because our signal reaches way up to, like exit 90 on the Parkway.
Right.
So we'll get some Jets this year. The Jets fans have infiltrated the show a little bit.
Okay.
But I do think that I've always said this. For me, the Eagles-Giants is my favorite week. The Eagles-Cowboys is more of this commercialized rivalry. I like the Eagles-Giants because of the proximity. But the Giants fans, to me, are much more rational people than the Dallas fans. I think they know the game better. They understand when their team is good. They understand when their team's not so good. I think the Giant fans do understand where they are right now. For the most part, you're going to get some outliers that are just irrational. I think the Cowboy fans think that their team is untouchable and clearly the best. I think the Giant fans know where they stand right now. They are happy with the progress of this team. As we get into this week a little bit more, though, the first time they play, I'll be interested to see if their tone has changed a bit.
Mike Gill, have fun on your phones on the Sports Bash this afternoon, rest of the week. We appreciate whenever you come on. We will talk to you again next week. Thank you, bud.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thanks,
Mike Gill, Sports Bash, ESPN Radio. He brings in Johnny Mack to get his football knowledge every single week. He turns around and spits it out, and sounds like he knows what he's talking about with us.
Yeah.
Because he talks to McMullen enough. No, Gill's great. We love him when he comes on, and we thank him for doing so. I asked him a favor if he'd move up to Tuesday this week, and he said he would. So appreciate that greatly. All right, Johnny Mack, Jody Mack, Mac and Mac guys coming back to do what? Oh, we got to put a bow on this show.